Put this class together. I know this isn't funny to you, but it kind of is for me. I I have two introductory chapter or lectures, so you're gonna have to suffer through two of these things. But this is the first one I'm going to use, and next week I'll throw the other one at you. Uh, this is this is an interesting class. This is the first time I've taught this class, so um, I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go. I know we're having problems with textbooks. Hopefully, that is going to be taken care of fairly soon. If you do not have a copy of the Cinematherapy book, it's the Hesley and Hesley Rent Two Films and Let's Talk in the Morning. If you the first or second edition, it doesn't really matter. If you don't have that textbook, send me your address and I'll send you a copy of it. Uh, but the other one is a little bit more expensive, and I'm kind of a cheap fella, so the social media book it's a good book. The problem is I've been having trouble with the publisher. I've been communicating with the publisher. Hopefully that one should be out by before we start using or before we start talking about social media. We'll put that one right in the middle of the semester. The last thing that we're going to talk about, so we're going to talk about cinematherapy. We're going to talk about social media, and we're also going to talk about gaming and what the researchers are saying about gaming. And one of the things that we need to remember, and I keep telling you this, is that things change over time. If you look at my abnormal psychology, the first abnormal psychology book I ever had, most of those mental illnesses, a lot of those mental illnesses don't exist. For one thing, they weren't recognizing personality problems, personality disorders, as much as they are now. Another thing was that they were really identifying different types of schizophrenia back then. It's a real strange book. And I used that book back in the middle 70s. So, things change over time. And now with all this social media and Instagram and Twitter and people having instant communication, things are changing a lot. And we're not exactly sure where they're going. One of the things that we're going to talk about next week is what they call text neck. What they're finding is that some individuals who text a lot and they bend over when they text, they bend over their phone, they bend their head down. What's happening is they're straightening out their necks. As you can see, this is actually not, this neck is fairly straight, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. Actually, your neck has a pretty good curve in it. And that's what we like to see when we look at an x-ray from the side of your spinal column. What's happening with these individuals is it's straightening out their necks as if they had a whiplash, and it's causing them to look hunchbacked, and they call it text neck. And I'll show you a picture of it next time. This really isn't a very good picture, is it? It really needs a better curve than that. Your head's right on top of your shoulders. If your head's forward, of course, then this portion of your back sticks out. Anyway, okay, so we'll talk about that next week. We'll see where I'm going to go with this. I'm not exactly sure what's in this lecture either. I put this together about a week ago, but I know it's the one that I was thinking. Well, uh, if I if I do a PowerPoint, I need to talk about what we're going to do this year, so or this semester. So here we go. Let's see where this thing goes. Um, this is, like I said, it's a brand new class. I thought cinematherapy makes a lot of sense to me, mainly because my grandson watches videos almost constantly, and I see a lot of people just watching videos, YouTube, watching. He's watching. What was he watching before? He watches people play games so that he can figure out how to play the games, but then he never plays those games. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But people are on their cell phones all the time. You see You see students coming out of class. As soon as they get out of class, they check their text messages or their emails or whatever they're looking at, and they're on their phones constantly. You see friends walking down the hallway, and both of them are on their phones. They're not talking to each other, or they may be texting each other, and they're standing right beside each other, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Of course, I'm 72 years old, and uh, none of this stuff was current when I was young. So I understand new things and new people. So let's go ahead and get started and see where this thing goes. I'm just here for a good time, like I tell you guys every semester. Um, I think what we're going to do, and I really haven't put this together yet because I haven't done the syllabus. I have to do that as soon. I have to do that before next week. But I think what we're going to do is I'm going to give you tasks to perform, or maybe just I'll give you an open-ended question, and you can talk about whatever was in the lecture, or what we were talking about. I know it's difficult to communicate with me. I do have office hours. What are my office hours this semester? Monday and Tuesday, it's 3 to 5, your time, Mountain Standard Time. And on Wednesdays and Thursdays, it's in the morning, 8 to 10, your time. So that's an hour later for me, but that's not important. Anyway, so if you need to talk to me, there's you can come to office hours. There's a Zoom number. It's the same Zoom number for all my classes, so you can talk to me. You can send me an email if you have a problem. If I've said something controversial, please don't. Well, you can do anything you want, but talk to me first so that I know that I need to change something. Okay? I'm an old man. I'm not sure how much longer I can last. I had a tough summer. Those of you who took my classes this summer, you know how tough it was. I taught 20 hours this summer, so well, I should be rich, right? As sadly, we don't usually talk about money, but one of the things that happened this summer, they were paying a select amount of money for each semester hour, and I worked 20, and that's a lot. They just raised the adjunct pay, which is how they pay us if you teach over the summer. They just raised the adjunct pay $200. So I missed out on $4,000 this summer. That's funny. Well, I think it's funny. I don't really because I made all that money. I can buy you guys those textbooks, so don't worry about it. It's not like my wife and I are eating beans, though we do eat beans sometimes. Okay, well let's go ahead and get started. This is a problem. The biggest problem that we have right now is the fact that we aren't really living in the moment as far as mental illness is concerned. Mental illness is behind by 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. So the medical community and the mental health community, they tend to be behind the curve. So there could be a problem. There could be a problem with social media. There could be a problem with gaming. There could be gaming addiction, which some countries have recognized, but the United States hasn't. And so if you look in the DSM-5, there are no media-related addictions or dangers or problems in the DSM-5. If you look at the ICD-11, the International Code of Diseases, or I think that's what it is, ICD-11. It also includes no media addictions, dangers, or problems. The recent mass shootings by media-infused teenagers might indicate that media is at least fuel, if not a causal factor, to the shooter's actions. And of course, these have been fairly highly publicized. People are blaming violent video games. Is that a possibility? Well, it could be a factor, but it may not be the causal factor. And of course, We need to do research, and people stay away from this new stuff. They would rather do research on old stuff that it's easier to get published. This is all controversial, so this is a problem. This can be a potential problem. This is a problem with psychology. We don't tackle the problems that are occurring right now. We tackle the problems that other people have said, yeah, that's a problem. And so if we can get other people to agree that this is maybe the way it is, then that's what we research. So we're staying away from the controversial things. A good example would be the abortion issue. Nobody wants to touch that one. And the reason they don't want to touch it is because they don't want to be labeled by that research. Another problem is what's going on between males and females. That's another one that nobody wants to tackle. Why? Because it's too controversial. And if you are identified as a misogynist, then you're a misogynist for the rest of your life. Now, all of a sudden, all the women hate this one psychologist because he did research looking at a certain topic, and he made it look like he made it look like it was women's fault, and therefore he's a misogynist. That's you think I'm overstating the problem, but the reality that this is the reality in the world we live in. Nobody wants to be labeled as something negative, and nobody wants to be identified with that type of research. Okay, so let's is are we talking about media collusion here? New York State's top prosecutor has launched an investigation into the role social media companies played in the Buffalo mass shootings by Peyton Gendron on 14 May 2022. And this is Peyton Gendron making a stupid face. That's him in his tactical helmet. He had complete tactical warfare gear on when he went into the grocery store, the black grocery store, the grocery store in the black neighborhood, and started blasting people. The inquiries will look at the extent that social platforms were used to stream, promote, and plan the event. He was actually streaming his murders. The fact that an individual can post detailed plans to commit such an act of hate without consequence and then stream it for the world to see is bone-chilling and unfathomable. That was what the prosecutor said. The stream was taken down less than 2 minutes after the violence began, but was duplicated on other streaming sites despite the removal. Facebook did not remove the link to the copied video for more than 10 hours. Facebook, by which time it had been shared more than 46,000 times on the platform. So 46,000 people out there have watched this man shooting black people. A copy uploaded elsewhere was viewed more than 3 million times before being taken down. So this guy created a video, and I can assure you that it is still out there, that people have copied it, and that it will show up again on some of these websites. Some of these websites without ethics. The investigation will target online forums, 4chan, 8chan, and Discord, where the gunman reportedly posted about his plans. So he was talking about shooting these people, and nobody said anything about it. Of course, 4chan, 8chan, and Discord are all extreme right-wing websites. Friends of the 18-year-old recent high school graduate, this is Gendron. Gendron just played video games. He was a big gamer. He had a ton of online friends. And you can see, I don't know where that picture came from. I don't think that's a picture of that. This is actually him, of course. You can't tell it from that picture, but yeah, that's Gendron. And you can see he's got a Confederate flag in the back. It says, "Come and take it." He's got an AR-15, and he used an AR-15 style rifle in his killing, in his murders. I think he had, if I'm not mistaken, he was carrying 300 rounds of ammunition. So, and he was also planning to go someplace else and do exactly the same thing if he hadn't been caught. And of course, he was not killed. This is Robert Crimo. He was the one that shot up the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois. Under variations on the name Awake, the same word tattooed above his left eye. There it is, right there. Is that his left eye? That's it right there. That's his left eye. Robert Crimo, or Crimo, I'm sorry, the Highland Park shooter, posted regularly to YouTube. Crimo and his music were on Spotify, and he hosted a Discord server where followers shared memes and links to his songs. And of course, they were about killing people. Crimo's online footprint tried to make him seem very intense and very violent to accumulate a certain amount of perverted clout among other people in the same online spaces. There are portions of the internet that pride themselves on this fetishization of violence and being as offensive as humanly possible. And that's 4chan, 8chan, and Discord. Among the most disturbing is what appears to be Crimo's activity on a forum called Documenting Reality, where people share graphic photos and videos that show the aftermath of violence. There, as a user named Awake47, Awake, Crimo shared photos of and posted footage of shootings and other real-life violence. He posted there often, and you can see he was really kind of an interesting situation because he was dressed as a young lady so that he could escape, and he did. He was able to escape and get into his mother's car. And they didn't catch him for about an hour and a half. Robert Crimo played Call of Duty frequently and would often post pictures of his avatar sniping from rooftops, the very action that Crimo used to kill 7 and wound more than 30. And there you are. This is somebody sniping. Okay, Robert Crimo. The last one we're going to talk about is the Uvalde elementary school shooter. The Uvalde elementary school shooter Salvador Ramos told girls he would rape them, showed off a rifle he bought, and threatened to shoot up schools in live streams on the social media app Yubo. He was telling girls that he's going to come to their house and rape them and kill their families. This is women all over the world. Of course, nobody took him seriously. And maybe somebody should have. The use of Yubo skyrocketed during the coronavirus pandemic. These teens trapped indoors turned to the app for a semblance of in-person interactions. The company says it has 60 million users around the world, 99% of whom are 25 and younger. And it has trumpeted safety features, including second-by-second monitoring of live streams using artificial intelligence and human moderations. But it didn't do anything to get him off the app, off the stream. Salvador Ramos routinely played Call of Duty, an online shooter game, and played and lost Dead by Daylight just hours before the massacre at Uvalde Elementary. Dead by Daylight is a multiplayer horror survival game where one player takes the role of the killer and the other 4 are survivors. Ramos was the killer, and he lost. And he immediately grabbed his guns, as we can see, that he had just recently purchased, and went into the elementary school, and he didn't just shoot 4th graders or 5th graders. I think they were 4th graders. He didn't just shoot them, he shot them in the face, and he blew their faces off. Desensitized by gaming? Well, that's something we'll never find out because Ramos was shot and killed. Crimo and Gendron are still, both of them are still alive. But Ramos, of course, had over an hour to do his damage in Uvalde Elementary School. 9 in 10 U.S. teens go online multiple times a day, and internet usage is 2 times higher in Asia and Africa. So while teens in the United States are online a lot, people in Asia and Africa are online even more. Studies indicate that between 1.6% and 11.3% of adolescents in China, Taiwan, and South Korea are considered addicted, and China has recently declared internet addiction a clinical disorder. One study from the United States of 7th and 8th graders found that the students averaged 11.5 hours a day using screens. That's computers, televisions, and cell phones. Another study found that 50% of teens say they feel addicted to mobile devices. That's because they have to go online. I have a grandson who's 10, and he has a cell phone. It's really kind of hard. He goes to soccer practice. Soccer practice lasts for about an hour and a half. And the first thing all these 9 and 10-year and 11-year-old kids do, as soon as soccer practice is over, they all grab their cell phones and to check something. I'm not exactly sure what they're checking. But I took him to practice one day. And finally, practice was over with, and everybody's checking their phones. And then all of a sudden, they all just kind of gaggled around one phone, and it wasn't his phone; it was somebody else's phone. But they were looking at something, and of course, the parents were all just talking to each other. I'm not all that friendly, and I'm a grandparent, not a parent, so nobody wants to talk to me. But so I'm sitting there, kind of standing there waiting and kind of walking, and he's talking to his friends, and they kind of filter away. The parents are calling them, it's time to go to dinner, that kind of thing. But he was willing to stand there and talk for a long time. I finally had to go get him and pull him away, and he got upset because whatever it was that they were looking at, uh, he certainly needed to see. And they tried to give him the IP address. I think that's what you call it, IP address. Anyway, but he didn't quite catch it. In one study of 1,100 young people, 12 to 17, 97% played video games. 99% of the boys and 94% of the girls played video games. That's one study of 1,100 kids. The teens' handles were the first piece of information exchanged between 38% of the boys. And I've heard this. I can't remember what Reese's handle is. Something about Florida. Florida 27 or something. Everybody's got a handle. A recent phenomenon among gamers is the advent of the headset. 71% of gamers use headsets to converse and work together to solve challenges. Research has shown that gamers are not just talking about what is in the game, but other things about life as well. And of course, some of this involves using words that they don't normally use, but that's you gotta hear these and learn these words somewhere. I learned some of these words in the military, but it's just the way it works. It's life. Many kids worldwide spend too much time playing online games. Outside of the United States, several countries have identified gaming addiction as a major public health issue. The South Korean government introduced a law banning access to games between midnight and 6 o'clock a.m. for kids under the age of 16. And there was a huge complaint about this, it's going to throw South Korea behind as far as winning gaming tournaments around the world. And there's a huge hue and cry. It's like telling soccer players they can only practice for 30 minutes or something. That's the impact that this law has. They're more worried about winning international fame than keeping their children addicted from gaming. In Japan, gamers receive an alert if they spend too much time playing, and we're not exactly sure how much that time that is, but in Japan, interesting place, Japan. I lived there for about 6 months. China's Tencent, the leading provider of internet value-added services, limits the hours a day that children can play in most popular games. Teen anxiety and depression are on the rise. Public Health and Health Policy report that from 2005 to 2015, depression rose significantly among Americans aged 12 and older, with the most rapid increase observed in young people. So, depression and anxiety is on the rise. Well, we're going to talk about that. Adolescent self esteem, self satisfaction, and happiness have plunged since 2012. Some of this has to do with the pandemic, but some of it has to do with the fact that everybody's got a smartphone. So 2012, what happened in 2012? Well, that was the year the smartphone ownership reached about 50% mark in the United States. Smartphone. I'm not sure I think I have an Android. According to Gene Twenge, and that's Gene Twenge right there, the results could not be clearer. Teens who spend more time on screen activities are more likely to be unhappy, and those who spend more time on non screen activities are more likely to be happy. There's not a single exception. All screen activities are linked to less happiness, and all non screen activities are linked to more happiness. She is a psychologist out of Purdue University in Fort Wayne. That's Gene Twenge. Przybylski and Weinstein research reveals that screen time may benefit teens' well-being by providing opportunities to develop social connections and skills. So what we have going on here is people are seeing screens as causal, as causing the depression and the anxiety, but for select individuals, who are shy to some extent, it's actually helping them. It's providing them a social connection where they don't have to feel embarrassed about their nose or their ears or their hair, the fact that they're having a bad hair day. Well-being increases as teen screen time increases up to a certain point. After that point, increased screen time is associated with decreased well-being. So the more you feel like you're part of something, and that's really good. That's one of the reasons why teenagers are teenagers, because they need to feel like they're part of the group, and it's their cohorts, the people in their class. On weekdays, teens' well-being peaked at the following levels: 1 hour and 40 minutes of video game play, 1 hour 57 minutes of smartphone use, 3 hours and 41 minutes of watching videos, 4 hours and 17 minutes of using computers. And this is on weekdays. So what is that? You get home from school at 5 or 6 o'clock. You go on the internet, or you start playing a video game, and about 2 hours later, that's about it. If you play longer than the 2 hours, from 6 to 8. If you played to 9 o'clock, then your feeling of well-being decreases. 1 hour and 57 minutes, same thing. About 2 hours on the smartphone. About 3 hours and 41 minutes watching videos. I guess my grandson's okay. 4 hours and 17 minutes of using computers. So what's the difference between all of these things? Well, video game is one thing. You're doing one thing over an extended period of time, and it's one game. Smartphones, you're looking at different things. Well, you're screening through your text messages or doing something. I'm not really sure what you're doing, but if you're watching videos, the videos change. And because they change, and because potentially you're looking at different things, you can spend more hours doing that without feeling bad. Because if you, and I do this with movies and television shows, if I'm watching a mystery movie that makes me feel really bad, I'll just turn on a comedy or something, or a rom-com. I'm big on rom-coms. It irritates my wife because she says, that's not what the way love is. I don't care. 4 hours and 17 minutes on the computers because you're changing screens all the time. You're looking at this, you're looking at that, so you can spend more time on a computer. I hope this is all making sense to you. A video game is one thing over and over and over and over and over again. You can only handle it for about an hour and 40 minutes. Smartphones, you're leaning over, moving things with your thumb, I guess. Um, and so it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. It's that narrow screen and it's going vertically. But if you can change what's happening, you can watch longer without feeling bad. If things are changing, like in videos, most videos are 20 or 30 minutes, and you may change from really serious stuff to not so serious stuff. Then you can watch longer without feeling bad. And of course, computers are the same way. Now I'll have to admit, and I don't know if I've admitted this to you before, but I'm a news junkie. I can't. I watch CNN. I look at CNN. I'm looking for news. I don't want to be caught flat-footed. When I was young, of course, the Vietnam War started. And my parents had two news magazines back. Of course, there were no computers back then. You could watch the news, but you watched it 3 times a day, probably once a day at 6 o'clock, because you had to go to bed before the 10 o'clock news. Anyway, what I'm talking about is Newsweek. I used to read Newsweek, and my parents had U.S. News and World Report. So I used to read the news all the time, and I'm reading the news. So when Vietnam occurred, I knew where it was, and all the stuff that was going on, Laos and Cambodia. I knew where those places were, mainly because I watched the news a lot. I still do. I still watch the news, wondering what's going to happen next. Of course, I was in the military for 12 years, and it's always nice to know where they're going to send you to go to war. It's also nice to know that if they send you to Bosnia, that hey, wait a minute, there's something going on here. It's kind of nice to know what's going on in the world, to know where you might be shot at. You go to Iraq and you're thinking, wait a minute, that's in the Middle East, isn't it? I think. Isn't it over there by Egypt? Are they shooting people over there? That kind of stuff. Afghanistan, whatever. Of course, those two wars are over with, so we don't have to worry about them. But in the Air Force, they were sending people to, where were they sending them? And they were doing the supply flights. One of them was Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, and the other one was, I can't think of it. It's one of the stands just north of Afghanistan. So if you had an assignment to that place, then, or if they were sending you to Kabul, that's where the action is. Anyway, on weekends, teens could engage in digital activities between 22 minutes and 2 hours, 13 minutes longer, before demonstrating negative effects. And this is known as the Goldilocks hypothesis. Studies indicate that on average, males need 59 likes on an Instagram post to feel happy, whereas females only need 45. A 2017 survey of 1,500 teens found Instagram, along with Snapchat, Facebook, and Twitter, to be associated with high levels of depression, bullying, and FOMO, the fear of missing out. FOMO, the fear of missing out. Okay. None of this makes any sense to me at all because I don't know anything about likes. And I live in the middle of a cornfield because I have the fear of uh, not of missing out, but of being included in something. So, but I'm not a teenager. Haven't been a teenager for 60 years. Yeah, 60 years. Anyway, so I don't understand some of these things, but fear of missing out's a huge thing. It's huge. People don't want to miss anything. My grandson, that's one of the reasons why he grabs his cell phone after soccer practice. Had a great time in soccer practice, wasn't thinking about anything. As soon as soccer practice is over with, he's on his phone again. He wants to find out what Riley's doing. He wants to find out what Levi's doing. He needs to he needs to know what his friends are doing and what they're saying and where they're going. Doesn't want to miss out. Social media notifications reward the brain with small hits of dopamine, a chemical that leads to increased pleasure. And of course, I teach the 360 class, drug use and abuse. This is it. It's dopamine. We're looking for a reward, and it's the neurotransmitter dopamine that splashes into your brain and rewards you for doing what you want to do or what you need to do. When the individual goes online to see that what notification is, they are rewarded with a second hit of dopamine. So you're hit when you hear the bell go off or whatever it is that clicks on your smartphone. That gives you a rush of dopamine. As soon as you look to see what it is, you get another shot of dopamine. The anticipation of what that notification might deliver elevates the dopamine even more than the actual reward of receiving a text, a like, or a breaking news update. And that's me, the breaking news update. This dopamine reward activation is at the same level as the pleasure from eating, sex, drugs, alcohol, and gambling. It's exactly the same. Okay, so now we know that it can possibly be addictive because the dopamine is the same. The reward is the same. As far as your brain is concerned, it doesn't matter whether it's eating, sex, drugs, alcohol, gambling, or a notification on your cell phone. It's dopamine. That's all it knows. It's giving you a shot of dopamine. The pleasure derived from playing World of Warcraft is the same pattern of neurons firing across the brain as a pattern for known addictions. PET scans and functional MRIs reveal an increase in glucose uptake in the areas of the brain that are pleasure oriented, and the neurotransmitter associated with that process is, of course, dopamine. Technology is so hyperarousal that it raises dopamine levels. It is tough enough resisting technology when one has a fully functional adult frontal cortex, but adolescents don't have this biological advantage. Their brains are not mature yet. Their brains won't be mature until they're in their middle 20s. Ouch. So we got a problem. We got a problem, and the problem is getting even more interesting because they got a bunch of stuff going on in their lives. One of them is they're reaching puberty, and sex becomes an important thing for them. My grandson's only 10. He hasn't reached puberty yet, and I can imagine that some of the things that his friends are showing him have to do with pornography. I I I'm not, I don't doubt that a bit. He's only 10 years old, but he may be introduced to pornography. And of course, pornography comes in tons and tons of different forms. Some of it just has to do with nudity, some of it has to do with intercourse, some of it has to do with violence. So unfortunately, depending on which websites that he will visit in the future, will determine what he thinks and how he thinks that sex is supposed to work. This is a tough one because there's nothing that I can do to tell him, "Hey, look, you shouldn't be looking at that stuff." If it titillates him, if he finds it exciting, he's going to go to those sites, no matter what I say. And of course, he's alone with his cell phone. You can't see what's on his screen ever, unless you get right behind him and look over his shoulder. But you can't do that constantly. He's got stuff or you've got stuff to do, and he's got stuff to do. And well, anyway, ouch. This is a problem. Beginning in early adolescence and peaking midway through teens, through teens, midway through, teens experience, beginning in early adolescence. I wrote this. What the hell am I writing? Beginning in early adolescence and peaking midway through, teens experience an increase in the activity of the neural circuits that use dopamine. This is why teens gravitate towards substances and experiences that yield rewards, such as social media likes and text message pings. They're just looking for the excitement. They're looking for that blast of dopamine. In addition to experiencing pleasure from internet activities, teens are more easily addicted to pleasure than adults. The teen brain is geared to learn, and pleasure becomes an immediate teacher. Smoking is a good example. Teens who smoke show higher rates of tobacco addiction than adults who smoke the same amount. They get more out of it because their brains aren't mature yet. They are operating on the pleasure principle. If it feels good, then do it. And if it still feels good, keep doing it until it's all over with. Until you got all the pleasure you need. That's one of the reasons why kids become addicted to different things. That's why they become addicted to drugs and smoking and marijuana, and well, that's a drug. And this kind of stuff. Did we know what we were doing when we invented the smartphone? Did we realize what was going on? And the answer is probably no. Somebody just wanted to make money. Um, Apple just wanted to, the iPhone. They just wanted to make money. So they kept coming out with newer and newer cell phones that could do everything that a computer can. Now you've got a computer in your hand. Compulsive or addictive behavior can hijack the brain's ability to access the judgment center in the frontal cortex, and their frontal cortex is not mature yet. That's the part of the brain that should be asking, how important is this text? Or do I need to check Snapchat every 5 minutes? Kids lack the judgment to know when to put down or ignore their phones. My daughter teaches high school, and in her class, nobody can look at their cell phones, and if she catches them, of course, she does all kinds of horrible things like sends them to the principal. But they still can't stop. They hide them under their desks. They have watches that is like a cell phone. It's some kind of an iWatch or something. She just can't stop them, and they can't stop either. Likes and FOMO on Instagram, personal photos and selfies rule. It was adjudged the worst social media network for mental health and well-being. That's Instagram. Instagram easily makes women and girls feel like their bodies aren't good enough as people add filters and edits to make themselves look perfect. And I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how any of this works. Maybe I shouldn't be teaching this class. Maybe you should have a 25-year-old. But it's really kind of interesting. When I first came to Dene College, the individual that I was teaching with didn't want to teach drug use and abuse. She said she couldn't teach it because she had used drugs when she was a teenager and when she was a young adult, and she couldn't say anything negative about them. She couldn't be realistic about how destructive drugs were because, in her mind, they weren't destructive because she enjoyed them so much. Now, maybe it's better that I'm teaching this class because I don't have the same feelings that you guys have about your cell phones. I don't really understand why you have those feelings, but I can give you the information. Maybe it's stilted. Maybe it's inaccurate. Maybe the research isn't. There's not enough research out there. But maybe the reality is that I'm the only one that can teach this class. That would be exciting. Jeremiah can't teach. Professor Barber can't teach this class. Anyway, okay, so let's go ahead and keep going. You guys can call me, well, you probably call me that anyway, don't you? Old fashioned, I'm sure. We can probably come up with more descriptive terms for an old fogey like me, an old fart. Researchers found some benefits from social media use. Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook received positive scores for self identity, self expression, community building, and emotional support. So, social media, it's not all bad, okay? It's not all Discord, 4chan, and 8chan. YouTube got high marks for providing access to trustworthy information. And I go on YouTube from time to time. As a matter of fact, my lectures are on YouTube. There you go. Okay. So there's a lot of good information there. It will throw things at you that theoretically you want to see, as interesting as that is. Facebook has been lauded for providing groups or pages where youth can surround themselves with like minded friends. This has been especially beneficial to the well being of the LGBTQ plus youth and those who belong to ethnic minorities, two populations that find it challenging to find like minded peers in their offline communities. Who can argue with that? So these are some of the good things. Younger children use media in playful, creative ways, often to play games. But this lighthearted attitude changes abruptly by middle school. And that's where my grandson is headed. He's in the fifth grade this year. So next year, things are going to change. Those websites that his friends have been showing him, he's going to start watching those more and more frequently. He's going to become an adolescent in 2 years. In middle school. He's going to have older friends who are seventh graders and eighth graders, and they're going to think that he's uncool because he's not looking at this website or that website. Middle school is tough. You got to be one of the group, just like this group. Middle school and teenage years are a time for experimenting and discovering one's adult potential. Unfortunately, technology can accelerate and amplify any mistakes in judgment that might occur. Sexting is the sending, receiving, or forwarding of any sexually explicit message, photograph, or image between digital devices, most commonly cell phones. Sending sexts of people under the age of 18, even between two teenagers in a relationship, is illegal in most states. Sexting is illegal, no matter how old you are, how young you are. That's what you should know. If it's happening with an older person, if you've got two consenting adults, sexting is okay. That's one of the reasons why so many of the Hollywood celebrities are getting caught sexting people. Dude, what is it? They have videos, sex videos, sex tapes. That's what they call sex tapes. Yeah, strange things going on. But so teenagers who are coming into their puberty and are curious about these things, this is something that's happening. I was teaching high school in Nebraska back in 1980. What year was that? 83, 84? 83, 84. The freshman class were passing around photographs of pictures that someone had taken in the girls' locker room as the girls were dressing. It was another girl that had taken the pictures, and they were kind of. And I was teaching a freshman class, and I just caught a glimpse of one of them, and I told the kid that he needed to take that. I sent him to the principal's office. Um, it was all over the school. Um, well, at that point, it had only gotten into the freshman class, but I hear this is 1983, 1983, and they're taking, and they're all freshmen, and some of the girls were posing, as weird as that may seem. And of course, some I don't know that they ever figured out who took the pictures, but that was Uh, and even in 1983, when I was, how old was I in 1983? 30, 35. I was still uncool way back then. Yeah, I know. I'm just uncool. If those pictures ever got out, and it's child pornography, but I just caught a glimpse. I never didn't really see what was going on. I just knew it wasn't a picture that should be passed around the classroom. And I sent the kid with his picture to the principal, and there was, and it wasn't that big a deal. Evidently, this happened a lot at this school. This was fairly common for somebody in the freshman class to be the photographer, and the girls. Some of the girls posed, like I said. They didn't take it. I guess there weren't any pictures of anybody that didn't want to have their picture taken, but it was right out of Porky's. If you've ever seen that movie, hopefully you haven't. The shower scene of Porky's. An adult sexting a minor who is between, this is sexting in Arizona, an adult sexting a minor who is between 15 and 17, or sexual exploitation of a minor is a class 2 felony. Also, for sexting related crimes, teens over the age of 18 will most likely be charged as an adult for sexual exploitation or online solicitation of a minor as well. In Arizona, sexual exploitation of a minor or child pornography charges can come with some serious, significant potential consequences if they are convicted. That's in Arizona. In Arizona, a minor cannot send or possess explicit sexual material of another minor. Even if the individual received the explicit material directly from the other minor, if the individual does not report the material or reasonably try to delete or destroy the material, they are behaving unlawfully. Individuals under the age of 18 who engaged in sexting will go into the juvenile justice system in Arizona. That's Arizona. Sexting in New Mexico. Sexting can be prosecuted under New Mexico child pornography laws. A teen boy may ask his teen girlfriend to send him a naked photo of herself, then share the photo with his friends, and all of them may be prosecuted under the New Mexico child pornography laws. New Mexico makes it a crime to distribute or show a sexually explicit image to a child. New Mexico prohibits sexual communications with a child under the age of 16. Two 15-year-olds sending nude photos of each other via text could be charged in violation of New Mexico sexting laws. An adult sending or receiving an image of a child under the age of 16 would be considered in violation of child pornography under New Mexico law. A comprehensive study by the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2018 revealed that 1 in 4 teenagers reports having received a sext, and 1 in 7 reports having sent one. 1 in 7 teenagers. So in Arizona and New Mexico, all those people, we should have 1 out of every 7 of your teenagers in the juvenile justice system. Of course, that's a bit much. But these are the things that happen. The number of kids involved in sexting has risen significantly in recent years due to the number of kids who have their own phones. It's not just boys asking girls for nudes. Researchers found no significant difference between the sexes pertaining to either sending or receiving sexting messages. I had a friend who was a policeman, and he he was. I'm laughing about it, but I shouldn't. He would send pictures of his junk to somebody that he thought might find him attractive. So one day, he was a cop, and he got fired because one day he sent a picture of his junk to to a woman who was at a restaurant, who was eating dinner with her husband, and she looked at it. She looked at it and laughed or something, and her husband grabbed the phone and saw it, and of course, Uh, he's not real bright, so he had his name on it or something. Anyway, he got fired, of course. And I laugh about this. He was a good cop, I mean, other than the fact that he was not a voyeur. He was an exhibitionist. He was an exhibitionist. Real strange guy. Anyway, okay, not important. So it's not just the boys that are doing it, it's also the girls. The girls are asking for pictures. According to Michelle Droon from Purdue University, Fort Wayne, it's not a bad kid thing, rather a perfect storm of budding sexuality combined with a child's first freedom on their own technological device. The frontal cortex is still immature, as I said before, so kids often send sext messages without even thinking. Droon explains, I would say sexting is a part of the normative teenage experience now, so it is very common to send some type of sexually explicit message. By the time they have hit young adulthood, more than half have sent sexually explicit pictures. 7 students in Iowa, ranging from 15 to 17 years old, face criminal charges for sharing phone messages that contain nude photos. 3 faced felony charges, while another 4 faced serious misdemeanor charges. 7 students in Iowa. A 17-year-old star football player from Michigan exchanged nude photos with a 16-year-old girlfriend. This isn't them. I just found a football player with his girlfriend. He was charged with 2 counts of second-degree sexual exploitation and 3 counts of third-degree exploitation. He faces 10 years in prison and a lifetime registering as a sex offender if he is convicted for receiving nude photos from his girlfriend. 2 high school students from New York City were suspended for up to 5 days for simply receiving or forwarding a sex video that was sent to them via a group text. Suspended students included those who received the video and didn't even know what it was. A 14-year-old boy from Rhode Island was charged with distributing child pornography after he shared inappropriate pictures of a 13-year-old female classmate with friends. The girl was also charged with disseminating indecent material. If convicted, the boy will be a felon and a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. Okay, so what's going on here? So what is going on is that somebody is discovering these photos and they are getting angry. They're probably the parents of these children, and somebody's getting angry and they're taking it as far as they can possibly take it. Now, a lot of times this isn't going to happen. If all of these kids are actually sexting and only select individuals are getting into trouble, so what's going on? What is going on is that some father gets angry because new pictures of his daughter are on the internet and there's no way to get them off. And so he wants somebody punished for it, and that's what's going on. Somebody's getting upset, and a lot of people are getting into trouble. You can imagine being a 15-year-old. What is a 15-year-old? A freshman in high school? Being a 15-year-old and having to register as a sex offender. It seems extreme, but they're trying to control this kind of stuff. In the 1950s, when television first started to become a cultural phenomenon, there were dire warnings from social scientists about the medium, that the medium would be the doom of humanity. Referred to unaffectionately as the idiot box and the boob tube, boob in this case means idiot and rhymes with tube, hence the boob tube. TV never quite led to the demise of civilization that they predicted. So all of these dire warnings about people about teenagers. Are we destroying their brains? Is the smartphone going to be the demise of civilization? Probably not. Technology is not a villain. Otherwise, computers, the internet, video games, sexting, and pornography are just some of the factors that can lead to problems. Violent video games and rabid extremist platforms on the internet may feed a person's hatred, but the hatred is the product of family and community dynamics, not the technology. It isn't the technology, it's what is put on the technology. And this is what 4chan looks like. So if you see four hearts together, green hearts, and this is a two-headed snake is 8chan, and Discord is this symbol right here. Somebody with a mask on, I guess. Anyway, these are extremist platforms. They're hate platforms. You can put anything on there that you want. There's nobody that's filtering any of this stuff. So this is where 8chan, 4chan, and Discord is where all of this hate media is. This is where it is. I'm sure there's others. I just don't know them. I certainly don't visit them myself. But there are some people that are paid to watch these sites. The NSA, for example, National Security Agency. They're probably on these sites constantly, so they're watching whatever's going on. Hopefully they are, because things like January 6th need to be identified before they happen. This semester, we will be looking at the possible benefits of cinema therapy, the benefits and potential problems with social media, and the benefits and possible problems in the video gaming world, which includes PC dominant, mobile dominant, console dominant, and multi-platform players. This is virtual reality, of course. I'm not sure. Well, I got a picture of virtual reality. Anyway, PC dominant has to do with playing games on the computer. Mobile dominant is playing games on your cell phone. Console dominant has to do with Xbox and what's the other one? Oh, I can't think of it. Not Atari. That's really old. Despite some pretty serious zonkers in the history of TV, the 80s show, The Big Brother, South Beach, Jersey Shore, The Jerry Springer Show, these were all really bad shows. Really, really bad shows. TV has not destroyed civilization and has in fact produced some highly touted shows such as The Big Bang Theory, my favorite, The 70s Show, which I never watched, Friends, which I never watched, Cheers, and Seinfeld, but people say, oh, this is the best television you can possibly have. And I would agree with The Big Bang Theory. I watched that one. Thus, we need to be careful predicting that video games or social media will be more than a factor in our social history. And of course, there we go. We will begin the semester looking at cinema therapy from, it's actually Heasley and Heasley. I keep misspelling these guys' names. It's right there on the book. With the amount of time preteens, teens, and young adults spend watching videos, cinema therapy could very well be a way to communicate with a technologically savvy population. I anticipate spending about 3 weeks looking at cinema therapy. We will next deal with social media using the Arndt, Field, and Swart texts, social media and mental health, depression, predators, and personality disorders. There are 7 chapters in this text, so we will probably spend 7 weeks looking at this topic. Video games in their many forms, computer, console, smartphone, or virtual, will be our last technological area to peruse. I am still looking for a good comprehensive text that covers this subject, but I will present the material in PowerPoint form, so there will not be an additional purchase. So I've requested, this is a book that I would like you to have. This is a book, if you don't have this book, I will send you a copy of it. Just send me your address and I will send you a copy of it. It's out of print. Follett is having a hard time securing copies. There are copies out there on the internet. I can secure them for you and I will send them to you. Don't worry about the cost. Don't worry about the cost. And this is the reason you shouldn't worry about the cost. A lot of times, because I am a college professor, a lot of times I take surveys. And when I take the surveys, they ask me afterwards, well, how would you like to be paid? They paid $10 or $15 or $20. And I always say, well, give me credit at Amazon. So I've got all this credit. You think that I'm spending all this money on these textbooks, but actually I have so much credit at Amazon that I'm not paying anything. It's all these crazy surveys I took, and it not and I enjoyed them at the same time. Sometimes they take a little time, but anyway, that's don't worry about the money. Money's not important. You don't have to send me back any of the money. So if anybody needs a book, just send me your address, and I'll send you a copy of this one right here. I've got one sitting here. Mine came from Patchogue Medford Library, so it's a used library copy. So I'll send you something. Who knows what it'll look like when you get it? Maybe it'll be all marked up or something. This is a new class, and as such, we all need to be prepared to look for information that will add to our compendium of psychological knowledge. If there is any topic that we aren't covering or any statement that I have made that you don't agree with, except for my list of best and worst TV shows, then please tell me and I can see if it can't be addressed sometime in the future. And here's my list. Wait a minute, where's my list? There's my list. If you thought the Jersey Shore and Snooki were the greatest things in the whole wide world, or you've been watching Jerry Springer for the last 15 years, I apologize. It is not good. The 80s show was a spin-off of the 70s show, and it was a bomb. I see Big Brother advertisements on television, when I watch regular television. And I think, who watches this stuff? And the answer is my daughter does. My daughter watches Big Brother with her son, with her 9 and 10-year-old son, doing all the stuff that they do on that show. Anyway, not important. I will be putting the class together as we go along. My summer was far busier than I anticipated, and I have very little free time to work on my Psych 321 material. This means that things can be added and subtracted as the class progresses. I will try to give you that's one of my favorite videos. I'm into K-pop. No, not really. Um, So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, I usually put these classes together and give you pretty much the same thing over and over again. But this one, I don't know how this is going to turn out. This could be a big bomb. You guys might go, "That's the worst class I ever took." Oh my God, we didn't talk about anything that I wanted to talk about. If you've got desires about seeing things, uh, just send me an email, okay? And that's it. That's it for the first one. I've got another first first video for next week. That ought to be funny. We'll see what it is. It comes out of a book called Raising Humans in a Digital World by Graeber. That's the next lecture comes out of that text. So we'll see how that goes. We'll start cinematherapy the third week. We'll start talking about cinematherapy. One of the things I'm going to have you do when we are talking about cinematherapy, go. When we talk about cinematherapy is I'm going to want you to watch movies. And I will, that's not the next video, it's the video, the third video, the first cinematherapy video. I show a bunch of movies that have to do with mental health. And I will want you to look at some of those movies. They're modern movies. See, the problem with our text is cinematherapy was huge back at the turn of the 21st century. But then it kind of lost its power. But I think that people are looking at videos so much that this is what the kids are doing. When they're on their cell phones, what they're doing is watching videos. And I think we can really use this with kids. And adults like to watch movies too. I mean, what do you do at night if you're after supper? Actually, I watch movies during supper, so they're watching videos. So why not? This is something that everybody does. Everybody wants to watch a movie. The only people not watching movies are probably people with ADHD. Everybody else can sit down and go to the movies and eat popcorn and watch a movie. So what I'm going to want you to do is critique the movies, and I'll figure that out when we get up there. I guess I have to figure it out before I write my syllabus, don't I? Okay, so that's it. I'll talk to you guys next week. Welcome to class. This is going to be an adventure for me as much as it is an adventure for every class is an adventure for you. Good luck and let's have fun in the class, just like Cy.